So tell us your story. Did you grow up in church and all of that?
Definitely. I preach in heels, so at least I still do. Ask me in 10 years, maybe it'll be different.
No, you won't give them up.
So I have the honor of leading a church plant that we just launched 2 weeks ago, Aviva Church in Cleveland. And certainly, I think that call started when I was young. I remember being 14 years old, growing up in the church, and I remember a specific altar call. And the person praying for me said, "Lumar, do you love me? Feed my sheep." And I had no idea what that meant at the time. Fast forward several years later, and I'm starting to see that word come into fruition, and not just see it, but multiple times in my life where God has made it super evident, and I think as a woman, as a millennial, as a Latina, it's truly a privilege, right? And along the way, I can think of men and women who've trained me up, like in the ways of the Lord, trained me up in the ways of the Lord to preach and teach and lead in the church as a little girl, so that at this point we could be leading a church in Cleveland. And I always say we're like in the middle of a move, and you said this earlier, and it's exactly what I've been just proclaiming. We're in the middle of the move. We just happen to be in the center, like surrounded by the move of God in Cleveland. And there's this crazy move. I happen to be experiencing it among the Latino community, among the second generation specifically. And so the second generation in some ways has just left the church in a way. Our people have left the church, and God's calling us back, not through just our church, but through this movement that's happening. Mm-hmm. And we so happen to be in the middle, but it started when I was a little girl, growing up, following the footsteps of my parents, and my mom specifically. Yeah.
Were they pastors?
So my parents are pastors now. So I'm like an unofficial PK, because I didn't grow up as a PK, but I am a PK. I'm not sure where that stands in the process.
But they did raise you up in the way of the Lord.
Yeah.
And that is biblical. And how important is that you're able to carry on the ministry and hear God's calling for your life?
Yeah, certainly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so we've been church planting this past year, which the call came, and I think our call to ministry always comes like when we least expect it, or at moments in our lives where we're like, yeah, this is a horrible time for us to say yes to Jesus. But I think our church has been birthed out of obedience, certainly, and if we could live that way in everything that we do. So here we are, obeying God. Certainly a year and a half ago, I did not have any plans for this in my personal and professional life. But it's been so good to say yes. So good to say yes to Jesus.
I love how you're knocking all the boxes. You're preaching, you're Latino, you're a woman.
So uncomfortable, I tell you.
I love that. But you know what? This is the moment. If you're going to do something for God, you just got to get on board and just do it. You just got to step into it if God tells you to do something. I love how you're just knocking all those boxes. You're just saying, okay, all right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Yeah. And you're jumping right in. Yeah. And making an impact. You're right in the heart of Cleveland, right?
We are, yeah. Old Brooklyn area, right next to 480. So whether you're east or west, we're almost central to that.
What's the name of your church?
Aviva Church. And so the name Aviva, it's a Spanish word. The closest definition would be like revive, but there's really nothing too close to it. But what it means is to like birth something out of nothing. Mm-hmm. And we've seen that. So this whole journey has been a faith journey to see our church go from like 2 to 4, 4 to 7, 7 to 25, 25 to 60, so awesome. 60 to like double that.
Wow.
And now it's just seeing it happen so quickly, the move of God, really, and the art of obedience.
And I don't know if we've been asked, but what area are you from, or where are you originally from?
Yeah. So I grew up in Cleveland. I grew up on the west side of Cleveland in a small Latino church that's, like you said, fivefold ministry, like the Spirit of God.
Yes.
Growing up in that fire, in that in seeing miracles and seeing the move of God on a radical kind of basis. But my family's from Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic.
Beautiful.
And so it's we're starting with like a Spanish. Our church is in Spanish. It's hitting the heart of how we worship, why we worship, but at the same time we see that multiplying into something multicultural where we can reach our third gen. And it's been beautiful to see that the extension of families coming, like not just the second gen, but as you reach the second gen. So you reach the third gen, their children, and you reach their parents' first gen. And so it's been beautiful to see this multi-generational ethnic church
I love that.
forming for God's glory.
That's awesome.
I love that. Tell us you were talking a moment ago about how the growth seemed to happen. When did you start seeing that growth happen?
It's scary. I think some of it is cultural. Like you show up to something, and if as a Latina, you tell your cousin and your aunt and your uncle and your grandma, and so that has been happening. Like multiple families, multiple generations together in the same room.
Oh, that's so exciting.
And it's like, I see it and I'm like, well, God, what are you doing? Certainly you're in the middle. And it's really just a response to love, a response to love, to this nurturing sense of God's love through his Spirit and through his church. Like the church is still alive. The church is still powerful. The church is still a healing place.
Yes.
And people are experiencing that.
And that's the true call of being an evangelist. He said, go into all the world, not just my little neighborhood.
Yeah.
But outside, in every culture, every denomination, every ethnic group, every race, religion, and win them to Christ. Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every single creature.
I love
Everyone. I love that.
Hey everyone, hope you enjoyed the video. To see more like this, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. Get all the latest content from TCT Ministries. We'd love to pray alongside you for God's blessings in your life, so you can email your prayer requests to prayer@tct.tv or click the link below and submit your request at tct.tv. God bless you and thank you for watching.